when I was going through the awakening process and I heard that we are love, that is what we are, sounded very lovely. Of course, it's a nice concept, but I didn't really know what that meant. So it is something you have to experience directly. It is a quality of what we are, that we are unconditional love. But it is something that is experienced. It's not something that's understood. When this switched on in me, it felt like a flame was lit. And then unconditional love was just pouring out of this being, and it couldn't be switched off no matter what was happening. And that felt very nice. But to get to that point where that shift happened, there was a lot of work that had to be done around beliefs to do with love and healing, healing the wounded parts here to do with love specifically. So we're talking more along the lines of sort of therapy and that type of work, but it's also beliefs like I'm unlovable, I don't deserve love. We have to work through these beliefs that we have running usually very unconsciously. We don't know they're there before that opening can happen and be permanent, before it will stick. So we can get glimpses of it. We can have openings to that unconditional love, but for it to be how we're operating, what we're operating from, this unconditional love that we are, for that shift to be permanent, it's like all of the ideas that we have, all the wounding that we have around love itself has to be ironed out before that stage. And so this is why it is so important to have someone that can help you work through inner child work through traumas, because a lot of the ideas we have about love were formed in our very early years. So whether we like it or not, that's the system. So we need to revisit the story, go into the story of me, even though that feels counterintuitive, and meet all those parts of ourselves that feel divided, that feel abandoned, that feel unloved or unlovable. And we can love them back. We can meet them as our adult self. We can meet our child parts, but we can recollect those split parts that feel unlovable, that feel divided against the whole. And so this happened very instantly. It happened through difficulties that happened. You don't even need to have had a difficult childhood for there to be issues around love, because we can misinterpret things. Even a parent not being there and being at work all the time, we can interpret that as they don't love me. So it doesn't even have to be abuse or anything like that, but we're going to form ideas about love just unconsciously throughout our childhood, and then we carry them through adulthood, and we recreate these situations in relationships, particularly in our romantic relationships, but also in friendships. We recreate our parental patterns and our ideas to do with love over and over again. And it helps to illuminate to us what is left to be healed, what our ideas of love are. Because I think a lot of us think that we understand what love is, or we think we're in love, or that we've experienced love, only later to find out through the awakening process that maybe we don't even know what it is, and maybe we've never even been loved, or maybe we've never loved anyone else. And that can be kind of shocking, but it's often true, particularly if you did have a traumatic childhood, that perhaps you don't really have a reference for love. And that's okay. That's okay. You can still get to what I'm talking about with that shift with unconditional love. I did it myself, coming from a trauma background. So it is possible, but it is a lot of work and a lot of healing that needs to be done. A lot of reclaiming of those childhood parts that feel alone and feel like they don't deserve love. And so we can love them back. And so it's a sense of they surrender back into the whole, It's like a split psyche that surrenders back into one piece. That's just a pointer, a way to understand it, so that there is just love felt here, and we could call that self-love. The love, the internal love, the inner talk is loving. We could call that it's reclaimed, it's healed, and so there's a strong sense of self-love. And then we also, what we see internally, we also see externally. So if we love ourselves, then we'll love others more. And so life will be more pleasant. We'll notice the love rather than the lack of love when we have built that self-love, when we've healed in that way. And so it just causes a bit of a roll-on effect. Then we're more loving to others, we're more loving to ourselves. And then we see that there's more love, and it just keeps snowballing in a really beautiful direction until we get to the point where we're ready to let go of the concepts to do with relative love. And they can still remain, and they will still operate. They're still an expression of the divine unconditional love that we are. So there is nothing wrong with them at all, and they're all very beautiful expressions, all the different types of love that we have. Love of an animal, love of a person, love of a teacher, love of a family member, whatever it is. All of those different types of loves are different types of expression of this unconditional love that we are. And then one day you'll get to the point where you're operating from we could call it a high level of love, inwardly and outwardly, that it starts to go beyond those concepts of relative love. And you start to see, it starts to dawn on you, I've always been love. I don't need someone to love me. I've always already been it. And when we start to have those realizations, that's when we're starting to break free of the concepts to do with relative love or love on the physical level. And then we can still enjoy that. We can still enjoy those connections and that expression of love. But we also start to see the absolute version of love. And that is that I was always love. I couldn't not be. I am made of love, of unconditional love. Nothing needs to change. Nobody needs to change. I don't need to change anyone. Everything is beautiful as it is. It is perfect how it is. And I don't need to place conditions upon this because it's already complete. And so when we start to tap into that, it's really beautiful. And then eventually it comes a stage where we are operating from that permanently, which can be quite a far way along the awakening path. So don't worry if it hasn't happened for you yet. So wherever you are on this part of awakening, it's not just about truth. That is a big part of it. But the flip side of the coin is that it is about love. It is about realizing on the heart level with your being, realizing not conceptually but feeling and operating from that love that we are made of. And then we perceive the world in that way, which is so beautiful, to be in a love bubble. And it doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries. It doesn't mean that you're not wise, because you develop those skills at the same time. Life helps you to develop those skills through giving you challenging situations to help you to learn how to love unconditionally, as is your nature, as is what you are, but still operate in the world so that you're not a doormat, so that you're not taken advantage of because of your openness. And so this unconditional love that we are is not stupid. It is very wise, and it knows when to say no. It knows how to set boundaries. So it can still love and do those things at the same time. And so it is very wise, unconditional love, and a beautiful way to be in the world, very nourishing and healing for the being here as well, to be operating and viewing the world from that place or from that part of ourself. And so I hope you can see the importance of leaning into those beliefs about love, those wounds around love, and really trying to develop a sense of self-love, a strong sense of self-worth, even though it sounds like it's counterintuitive for awakening. I feel like that is the way forward towards unconditional love, is repairing the illusory separate self, is healing it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just healing it to a degree where it is a lot more psychologically healthy. So then these greater levels of love can be accessed.